Female pilots blacked out at 30,000 feet. Then a single janitor took the controls. The first scream came from the cockpit at exactly 30,000 feet, sharp enough to cut through the steady hum of engines and the sleepy murmur of passengers, and in that single moment, everything inside Flight 718 shifted from routine to terror. The aircraft jolted slightly, not enough to trigger alarms, but just enough to wake instincts buried deep inside anyone who had ever learned to survive under pressure. Within seconds, the calm blue glow of overhead lights felt colder, the air heavier, and the invisible line between life and death thinner than ever before. No one yet knew that both female pilots had blacked out, or that the fate of nearly 200 souls was about to rest in the trembling hands of a single janitor who had never once imagined touching an airplane's controls. If stories of courage, kindness, and second chances move you, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because what unfolds next is a reminder that heroes often rise from the most unexpected places. Ethan Carter had spent most of his life blending into the background. At 36, he worked as a night shift janitor at the regional airport in Denver, scrubbing floors, emptying trash cans, and wiping fingerprints off glass that framed dreams far bigger than his own. He had once dreamed of flying, back when he was a teenager with endless curiosity and a borrowed stack of aviation books from the local library. But life, with its brutal precision, had redirected his path. His wife had died in a sudden car accident 6 years earlier, leaving him alone with a 4-year-old son and a mountain of hospital bills. Any dream that did not immediately feed, clothe, and shelter his child had quietly been buried under the weight of responsibility. Now, every extra shift he took, every sore muscle and sleepless night, was dedicated to one thing: making sure his son, Noah, had a chance at a better life. That morning, Ethan wasn't supposed to be on Flight 718. He had only boarded because his sister, who lived 2 states away, had fallen critically ill, and there was no time to waste. With his neighbor watching Noah, Ethan grabbed the cheapest last-minute ticket he could find. Barely glancing at the seat number, he boarded the plane exhausted, carrying a small backpack stuffed with clothes, a framed photo of his son, and a heart heavy with worry. As the plane climbed into the sky, he closed his eyes and let the rhythmic vibration of the engines lull him into a restless half-sleep, unaware that within the hour, he would be thrust into a nightmare that demanded more courage than he believed he possessed. In the cockpit, Captain Rachel Morgan and First Officer Lena Alvarez were seasoned professionals. Between them, they had logged more than 20,000 flight hours. The skies were clear, the weather calm, and the flight routine. But somewhere above the Rocky Mountains, something went terribly wrong. A sudden drop in cabin oxygen levels, triggered by a malfunctioning valve, flooded the cockpit with invisible danger. Within moments, both women felt dizzy, their vision narrowing, their limbs growing heavy. Alarms flashed, hands reached for switches that seemed suddenly too far away. Then, one by one, their consciousness slipped away, leaving the aircraft flying blindly on autopilot, with no one conscious at the helm. The first sign that something was wrong came when the seatbelt sign flickered on without warning. Then the plane dipped sharply, causing gasps and cries to ripple through the cabin. Flight attendants rushed forward, their faces tight with fear, as they attempted to contact the cockpit. There was no response. Again and again, they knocked, their voices rising, panic seeping into every word. Still, nothing. In the passenger cabin, fear spread like wildfire. Parents clutched their children. Strangers locked eyes, silently asking questions no one could answer. And in seat 23B, Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine as a memory stirred, a fragment of a life he thought he had left behind. Before tragedy had redefined his world, Ethan had spent 2 years in an aviation maintenance program, working toward becoming a certified aircraft technician. Though he never finished, he had absorbed countless hours of training, studied cockpit layouts, emergency procedures, and flight systems. He had never flown a commercial jet, but he understood enough to know what could happen if no one regained control. As the flight attendants passed his row, their faces paled. Ethan stood on instinct. His voice trembled as he explained his background. every word feeling too small for the enormity of the situation. There was no time to debate. With shaking hands and a pounding heart, he was led toward the cockpit, the heavy door opening to reveal a scene that made his breath catch. The two pilots lay slumped in their seats, oxygen masks dangling unused, panels glowing with warnings and flashing indicators. The plane trembled slightly, descending faster than it should. Ethan's chest tightened as he absorbed the reality before him. This was no simulator, no training exercise. This was real, and 200 lives depended on him not making a single catastrophic mistake. He strapped himself into the captain's seat, hands hovering over controls that suddenly felt foreign and immense. Sweat trickled down his back as he scanned the instruments, searching for anything familiar. His mind raced through fragmented lessons, emergency protocols, and half-forgotten diagrams. Every second felt like an hour. He forced himself to breathe, thinking of Noah's small hands wrapped around his fingers, of the way his son laughed when they chased pigeons in the park, of the whispered promise he made every night to always come back home. That promise became his anchor. Slowly, methodically, he began stabilizing the aircraft, adjusting pitch, leveling the wings, checking altitude. The autopilot had kept the plane from disaster so far, but fuel calculations, air traffic coordination, and a safe descent required human judgment. His voice, hoarse but steady, reached air traffic control, explaining the unimaginable situation unfolding thousands of feet above the ground. On the other end of the line, disbelief turned into focused urgency. Controllers guided him step by step, their calm tones a lifeline in the chaos. They spoke in precise instructions, translating complex maneuvers into manageable actions. Still, the pressure was suffocating. Ethan's palms burned as he gripped the controls, every vibration magnified by fear. Turbulence shook the cabin, and the intercom crackled with frightened sobs and whispered prayers. Yet, with each minute, the plane began to obey his touch, responding gently, predictably, as if recognizing the desperate hope guiding it back toward safety. As they descended, medical personnel rushed to revive the unconscious pilots, administering oxygen and monitoring vital signs. Slowly, painfully, signs of life returned. Fingers twitched, lungs drew shallow breaths. But it would take time before either woman could fully regain awareness, and until then, Ethan remained alone at the helm. His muscles ached, his eyes stung, and exhaustion threatened to cloud his focus. But he refused to yield. He adjusted flaps, monitored airspeed, and aligned the aircraft with the distant runway lights that shimmered like salvation against the darkening horizon. Below, emergency vehicles lined the tarmac, their flashing lights forming a corridor of hope. News helicopters circled, capturing the unfolding drama. Inside the cabin, passengers held hands, murmuring gratitude and fear in equal measure. When the wheels finally touched the ground, the impact sent a shudder through the fuselage, followed by a roar of relief so powerful it seemed to shake the walls of the aircraft. Applause erupted, mingled with tears, laughter, and broken sobs. For a long moment, Ethan remained frozen, his hands still wrapped around the controls, as if letting go might somehow undo the miracle he had just performed. When he finally stood, his legs nearly gave way beneath him. Paramedics rushed in, helping the pilots from their seats, their gratitude etched into every expression. Passengers craned their necks, searching for the man who had carried them safely back to Earth. Many would later say that in that moment, they understood what true heroism looked like, not fearless perfection, but ordinary courage summoned in extraordinary circumstances. In the days that followed, Ethan's life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. News outlets called him a guardian angel, a miracle worker, a hero. Yet when microphones were placed in front of him, he spoke only of his son, of the countless people who had guided him, and of the pilots whose training and professionalism had made survival possible. He returned home to Noah, wrapping his child in an embrace so tight it bordered on desperate, overwhelmed by gratitude for the chance to hold him again. Opportunities began to surface: scholarships to finish his aviation training, job offers from major airlines, letters from strangers whose lives he had touched without ever knowing their names. But beyond accolades and rewards, What lingered most deeply was a renewed faith in second chances. Ethan had once believed his dreams were over, sacrificed on the altar of survival. Yet in the unlikeliest moment, life had handed him a chance not only to save others, but to reclaim a part of himself he thought was lost forever. For Noah, his father's story became a beacon, a living lesson in resilience and compassion. He would grow up knowing that no matter how heavy the burdens, hope could still take flight. And for the passengers of Flight 718, every sunrise would forever carry the echo of a janitor who dared to sit in a pilot's seat when all seemed lost. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the hidden strength within ordinary people, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe, so more souls can find hope in moments of darkness. And before we close, leave a comment sharing what part of this journey moved you the most, because your words might be the encouragement someone else needs today. In the quiet of his small apartment, long after the cameras were gone and the headlines faded, Ethan would sit beside his sleeping son, listening to the gentle rhythm of his breath, and whisper a promise to never stop believing in the impossible. Because sometimes, at 30,000 feet, when the world seems to be falling apart, all it takes is one heart brave enough to hold it together.